forward.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for the ones that are here. John and Rob, we appreciate you all being here with us. We'll go ahead and call to order, and I'll start reading with our ethics statement, which states, board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. And Ruth's already mentioned one item.
I will abstain from one in the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate that. Pat, would you do our invocation, please?
Glad to. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, you are good when things in the world are not good, and you're faithful even when we're not faithful. And we thank you, especially though, that you are faithful, and that your mercy and your grace extends to us always. We have things that have happened in our county this week, and we have people that are hurting and have lost loved ones, and we ask that you would provide for every need that those people have. And we ask that you help us to trust you in all things. I ask that you be with us in our meeting tonight, and that you would give us the courage and the wisdom to make the decisions that are in the best interest of the children and families we serve. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I have a motion for approval of tonight's open and closed agendas?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Kathy. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Could I have a motion for approval of the January 12th, 2021 open and closed minutes?
So move.
Thank you, Pat. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Britton, would you bring us the superintendent's report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Do you recall where you were on the morning of 9/11?
Mm-hmm.
Right here.
Everybody does.
I was sitting in this room.
We still have those images in our heads when we heard about this tragedy that changed our nation forever. This week is a very special week for school here in Avery County and across North Carolina. This was the last week last year of face-to-face instruction that occurred during the 1920 school year as the governor announced the shutdown of all public schools on Saturday, March 14, 2020. I clearly remember where I was when I received the news of this shutdown and all that occurred on that day and each day thereafter. At that time, not only were our classrooms emptied, but grocery stores and department store shelves, for the most part, were also empty, especially empty of toilet paper. I'm still trying to find out where all that toilet paper went. So reflecting back on the last 12 months stirs a lot of mixed emotions as we observed many students and families suffer great hardships, particularly members of the graduating class of 2020 as they completed their K-12 journey on lockdown and remote learning. I commend all of our students, faculty, and staff and administration for their unwavering determination to return to in-class instruction this school year. We also must recognize all of our custodial staff and maintenance workers for their continued efforts this year to maintain clean, safe facilities while we are addressing the academic needs of each child under our care, not to mention the social-emotional needs of all of our staff and students. I must also commend each of you, our 5-member Board of Education, who have yet to waver when it comes to having our students in school. There have been times of great pressure from one side of the issue or the other, but you have recognized that school is the best place for our students and staff for multiple reasons. As you will see in Mr. Ayer's presentation in a few minutes, although our performance in multiple areas is not where it should be, kids are in school and we are providing the much needed support our kids need and our families across Avery County. So thank you for your unwavering determination to conduct school in Avery County. 2 Fridays ago, I had the pleasure of witnessing our local health department and Mr. Philip Barrier, our county manager, reach out to our faculty and staff with the first round of vaccines. We were very impressed at the 2 mobile units that the health department and Mr. Barrier pulled to each school in our district to keep our employees from having to leave work. They brought the vaccines straight to our school doorsteps. So thank you to Mr. Barrier for his unwavering leadership and support, Ms. Cindy Brigman for her organization, and Ms. Deb Gregg and all of our health officials for making this vaccination process a huge success. So now we're anxiously awaiting round 2 in just a few more days. Ms. Woody just received some great news from Dr. Lynn Harvey this afternoon from DPI. Waivers have been approved for us to operate our summer feeding program like we are operating right now, and this is a huge blessing. So we will be able to deliver meals to kids this summer like we did this past year. So we're going to be able to provide food for our most needy families once again. There are 17 days remaining until spring break, which will be greatly needed once we get there to give everybody a break. There are 51 days of instruction remaining in the current school year, and our Avery County High School graduation is planned for McRae Meadows once again this year, and I want to thank Mr. Jesse Pope for extending that invitation once again. Graduation will be conducted on Saturday, May 29th. The time is yet to be announced, so I'm anticipating it'll probably be in the morning as well so we can dodge any thunderstorms. I was informed this afternoon, as I alluded to by Mr. Buchanan, that we have a busted water line at Newland Elementary School, so we're watching that situation and trying to plan to get that water line fixed. So there may be the need for a remote learning day, possibly Thursday at Newland, and we'll be making that announcement if the need be as soon as possible, so staff, students, and families can make those preparations. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Briggs.
Yes, sir.
We'll move on to our discussion agenda, and I think you have covered all that actually, except our next board meeting. Anything else that you need to add to
No, sir,
important dates?
just trying to go on public comments and see if
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. Stephanie, did we have anybody for public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to 21st Century Systems and our Student Accountability Academic Update.
Good evening.
Alex, good evening.
How are
Thank
you
for
all
being
doing
here.
tonight?
Good.
Good. I'm working on setting this presentation up. The presentation is in your packet. At the very back, I put an update because there was a piece that was not very clear in the presentation, and that was the part that I'll show it on the presentation about test scores. Avery scores, the heading on it was listed as percent as opposed to just calling it Avery County Schools. So I'll mention that here in just a second.
The update is actually tabbed in your book, so you can reference back and forth if you need to.
No.
Thank you.
Are you getting the airplane those arrows?
I'm looking for it. Should be able to get a display, correct? CO7. Oh,
Sneaking up on them.
where'd that code go? There we go. Oh, there we go.
All right.
Oh, there we go. All right, so where are we at this point in time of the year? We've moved forward. We've got some good things that have taken place, and we've still got a long ways to go. So in taking a look at our mid-year assessments, we looked at our high school EOCs, and I'll hit those numbers. We looked back, the state released BOG results for the very beginning of the year. We also looked at our iReady results for the middle of the year, and then we've also been going through our formative results at each school level. So in your packet, you've got a lot more detailed information, but in terms of the highlights, this one right here is what the state just released at the last state board meeting from EOCs across the state. And on this, I'll go ahead and point it out here. These columns here, I changed this heading, but the number that you had in your packet is where the high school has scored on our EOCs. So in the first semester in Math 3, our total percent proficient was 56.36. The Northwest region was 49.5, and then the state was 45. So really good scores there for Math 3. Math 1, while we were higher than the state, we were lower than the region at 34%. Biology, that was a real struggle for us. Traditionally, we've been scoring above state average. This first semester, we were down to 29.75, as opposed to right around 46 to 45% for both the Northwest region as well as the state. In terms of English 2, we were well above both the state and the region in terms of scoring at 66.13. The thing about high school and test scores is that you never have a balanced schedule. You don't know exactly who was in those classes. Did you have an extra section of honors or not? So this was just kind of a snapshot as to where we were. Also kind of factored in, the high school went remote. Well, pretty much the system. November the 19th, didn't come back and test until after Christmas. So that's a really long amount of time, especially for Math 1 and Biology, those super content heavy courses. Thinking maybe that had an impact. So that's just kind of where we are in terms of trying to provide some additional stability. Yes, ma'am.
How did those scores factor into their final grade?
It counts 20%.
Did the state not waive that you
Well,
could do it?
It counts 20%, but then the scores themselves are curved.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, we get the state score and then we apply our curve to it.
Okay. Is that every year, or is that just this year?
That's every year. And usually we use the state model in terms of what that curve happens to look like. We did set such that any kid that tested wouldn't fail, but they would, the lowest score that we did have was a D.
Were all tests given at the school, all of them?
Yes, all
So-
EOCs, all state testing, not already, we'll get to that in a minute, but all state testing has to be given at the school.
Okay.
Now, Alice, some students could are there still students out there that need to take tests because
There's a small handful, it's like 3 and 4, because we had some kids that were quarantined at the time,
Right.
and they've got until July 6th. So
Okay.
they've got the opportunity to take it before the end of the year.
Okay.
So, and do we have a breakdown of the Ava students versus the in-person students?
I don't have that for the EOCs,
Okay.
no. I could get that, but I don't have that. That's a real small handful of kids. You're talking anywhere from 3 to 4 in some of
Okay.
those classes.
Okay.
The big data drop that we just had came from iReady, because that's all of our K-8 students. You've got grade level by grade level breakdowns, you've got some school breakdowns, but in general, overview, these 2 slides right up here, what this shows is here in the fall, where all of our kids came in K-8, we had about 28% of our kids that were more than 2 grade levels behind. That number has dropped to 24%. We have increased our number of students at grade level from the beginning of the year from being 34% up to about 47%. So that is just Avery County students. So we have a lot of kids that still need to make some gains, but we have made some progress from the beginning of the year. How does that context sit in terms of looking at national? Because we do get national data with iReady. In fact, they test over, I think it's right at about 2 million students nationally. And so in looking at the set amount of time in terms of testing in the winter, that's what this comparison happens to be. So in the winter, this past 2021, the same time we tested, Nationally, there is about 23% of the students nationally that are 2 or more grade levels below, and we have about 24, so we've got a few more there. But the positive is that we actually have 47% of our kids on grade level, where nationally it was 43. So that just kind of sets an overall context as to where we are. We're not exactly where we want to be, but we are kind of keeping pace really with everybody else that's in the same boat that we're in. You see the positives. We had some big gains in kindergarten and second grade. We also decreased the number of students below grade level. Fifth grade especially did a great job there, and the national data looks good. Middle school's tough. We've got a lot of kids 2 or more grade levels below, and so that's something that we're still working on, as well as at-risk students in general. So that's the reading. Looking at the math, again, you see the same setup in terms of the data charts. Overall, we're doing a good job relative to national data. Again, we've got more green than nationally, and we've got less red in terms of nationally. And so that's a good thing. It's not a great thing, because we want that red a lot smaller. Strong middle school achievement in math, a lot of high numbers with some gains in kindergarten, second, fifth, and sixth. Middle school, again, that engagement piece, 2 or more grade levels behind, that's a tough spot. Lots and lots of at-risk students in the elementaries. First, third, and fourth especially were our real hot spots there in terms of being some places where we're having to work on. So what are we doing with all that data? Because data is great, but only if you're going to use it. And so we have had a couple of meetings with iReady, coming in to talk with principals, looking at our data. They provided a lot of this data for us, sharing that data within PLC meetings. We have purchased iReady as our math textbook adoption, and we're using the resources there that they have rolled out to us. We're also taking a look at our schedules, because remember, before Christmas, our schedule was like this, in terms of we had a shortened day, and we only had 4 days a week. Well, now we've got 5 days a week in K-8. We also have a longer day. So what are we doing with that longer day? We're focused on pushing in more of those academics. We also, in addition to adjusting the schedules, tutors. Now that we've got weather continuity, that makes a big difference in terms of being able to get to those students on a regular basis. We're lining up where our supplemental funding needs to be, because grade level by grade level, all schools and all grade levels aren't created equal. They have different needs. And so really matching up where our needs happen to be with where our dollars. We're also looking at summer programming. One of the things that the state required us to report this year is the number of students that are at risk. I know that the state board, I got it on WREL, you can actually look up system by system the number of at-risk students each school system has. Each school system identified their kids in different ways. So it's really not an apples to apples comparison. It's really what we're looking at. These are the hard numbers that we've got that our schools identified, that are going to be invited to summer school. You can see it ranges anywhere from 31 students in 4th grade all the way up to in 1st grade, 67. 1st grade's so big because that kindergarten year was so important last year, and trying to get those kids caught up early. You can see also the high school numbers as well that we're looking at. We're following very closely House Bill 82 at the state level. It requires a 6-week summer school of 150 hours. And so we're making plans to put that in place with 3 weeks in June, as well as 3 weeks in July. Those letters will be going home to parents at the end of the third 9 weeks.
What about retentions? Where are we with retentions? Kids that are being held back?
That, we've not made those decisions yet. It's going to be it's going to be a lot smaller than this. One of the conversations that we're having with principals, as well as with parents, retentions work when everybody's on the same page. Because ultimately, we have to be partners with parents. And so that relationship is super important, because we need to have the student engaged, parent engaged, and the plan moving forward. And so those decisions will be made a lot after what we look at an additional 6 weeks of summer.
One of the things, I had a parent mention to me that they had rather have their child retained when it's a younger grade than have to go to summer school and then go again. And I don't know if that's something that other people are thinking or just that one parent that they felt like they needed the retention because it'd be a whole year.
What I would say, if that parent wants, if they are on board with that plan, this is personally speaking, that's gonna be a good plan.
Right.
What's not a good plan is, you're gonna do this because I said so. Because ultimately, then you've broken down the home and the school relationship. So, in that case,
Those are
that
just
can be
numbers we
made.
need to know, I guess, before.
And if a student's gonna be retained, something different needs to happen that
Yes.
second year. There has to be a personalized education plan drafted instead of just sending them back through the same thing again.
Well, I think maybe it's just thinking they missed so much.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
They just missed what was
You
being
know,
done.
I talked to a parent where between quarantine and being remote, I think you're looking at maybe that child's over 100 days now. And so, you know, she said she's just got no education, and that's through no fault of
No,
our
it's not.
system. That's just the way.
Circumstance.
Yeah, it's
so-
not blame,
And
it's
I,
just a.
you know, I told her, I said, to certainly talk to the principal and talk to
Yes.
the teacher. And that's the one I want to talk about is the teacher. You said you've had a lot of conversations with principals about iReady. Have you talked with the teachers and if they said, you know, this is what we're seeing when we see the kids, what's going on iReady? Because I do know that they took some of this, you know, online. So I'd like to know what the teachers think as far as, are these results
Accurate.
accurate?
The teachers, in terms of, they see the red and they're scared to death.
Of course, I know.
And so, do they think they're inflated? No. They don't get a sense that they're inflated. They get a sense of they're overwhelmed by the need. Because
Right.
when you start looking at the large numbers, we're looking at, right at about 21% of our kids are on this list.
Yeah.
And that's a lot higher than what we're used to seeing.
And I
So-
think the state's recognizing the need for this extended outreach and support too. That's why we're looking at the 6-week summer requirement. And we've surveyed all of our teachers to see how many teachers would be interested in supporting our summer learning experience, and it's been shockingly high, the number of people who want to work this summer to support this group of students that are at risk. So,
One other piece of information that's in your data packet, it's an addition. I did run the percentiles of Ema students versus face-to-face with both reading and math. It's a sheet.
That's on that tab page.
It's a sheet that looks like this. But because with Ava, it's really hard to get a good picture captured, because on the left-hand side, you can see Ava numbers have changed. Pretty much by about 20%. We had 400 students at the very beginning. Now we've got 300 because we pulled those kids back into face-to-face. And so what I've got over on this left-hand side is the percentiles of achievement. And it really varies grade by grade in terms of AVA and face-to-face, in terms of who is in that program. Some of it is probably some testing inflation in some cases, but then not necessarily in all. And it's really hit or miss and tough to be consistent to name what that looks like.
What other data sources are teachers collecting or whatever with these kids besides iReady to know what they really need to do, and like he was talking about like an IEP or a plan? Because I know iReady, like if you're in the yellow, the scores say this student is probably strong in this area and weak in this area. So it really lumps them into a group, but it doesn't really identify exactly what that one student needs. But the teacher could do that. So do they collect other data so that when they go to summer school and have a different teacher, that teacher could say, okay, this one's weak in this part of numbers and operations, or something along those lines?
iReady gives the 4 strands in terms of within math, and then it also does different parts of reading.
Right.
But as it goes deeper, teachers also use iExcel in terms of how they've been able to get achievements and what they're struggling with there. And then there's also good old-fashioned paper pencil assessments. We've got some kids or teachers that are doing running records that have been around for ages. It's a multitude of tools that they're using there. In terms of moving from iReady to assessment X to assessment Y. It's not exactly that precise because different schools have different resources, but they're collecting both anecdotal as well as some paper, pencil, and other types of assessments too.
So that would go with the child
Yes.
to summer school, if they
Yes.
go to summer school.
So,
Great job. Thank you.
Well, one of the things you mentioned was PLCs, when you mentioned PLC meetings. When you say a PLC, are we talking like fourth grade teachers from every school are talking, or are we just talking Freedom Trails teachers are talking? I guess when what I think of a PLC, I know what I think a PLC is, but what is?
we have grade level PLCs that they Zoom. They've got a monthly schedule that they come in at varying times. I pop in when I can
Right,
make it, and principals pop in as well. We've got a calendar of when they meet.
okay.
Grade level in schools, most of the time it's one fourth
Right,
grade teacher.
that's why I was
so,
asking,
so they've got some teams that meet
Okay,
kind of, I will give Crossnor an example. He has brought his K2 and his 3-5 folks together from a reading standpoint,
Right.
and they look at information
Okay.
that way.
I just wondered if by PLC, like fourth grade PLC is all the fourth grade teachers
It
across
is.
the school?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Thank you, Alice. Anybody got any more questions? Thanks, Alice. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to our Avery County High School construction update. Welcome, Rob Johnson. We appreciate you being here again this month. Thank you.
It's nice to be here. Good evening. How's everyone?
Good, how are you?
It's a gorgeous day.
Isn't it though?
Assume y'all got the copy of the letter we drafted to Branch. It was directed to Kathy Underwood. She's the current president. Predecessor Greg Floyd had signed the contract, but it seemed appropriate that, very timely, that we follow up with that letter that stressed it being imperative of that new building getting done in time for school. And so, talked with her yesterday afternoon, 1 o'clock. Her response was she agreed, and they knew completion of that new building is critical, and that they were fully focused and committed to getting it done. So it was a encouraging conversation. And then in visiting the school today, there's really good activity going on at all levels. So, again, we're at a point now, the other point of the letter to me too was that, up until we got the letter noon before the last Tuesday meeting, so we didn't have much time to look at it, but the point is the most recent schedule before that completion date was May 23rd, so by shifting to August 5th, only 5 days before staff comes, felt it's really, important for them to understand too that you just can't set up a school overnight. So I think the communication channels are clear. There were new people. There's a Jimmy Kennel now they call him the Superintendent of Superintendents. Met him today for the first time. So, we're encouraged, but it's going to be we get weather like this, Ron, it'll be really confident, I guess, to see the stonework completing. Walk through the interior now, it's drastically different than, weeks back where you were ice skating on the upper floor and stuff, so.
When's our tour?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing today, is
I love it, Rob.
getting to where it could be rescheduled.
We need to schedule one, especially for those, well,
Yeah, missed
it'd
it.
be good for all of us to go through again, especially the ones that couldn't make the last one, so we'll work with you and schedule that.
Yeah, we do have the next progress meeting, as y'all know, we've been doing them every 2 weeks on Thursday, so, anyway.
Well,
I shared with the board members that I'd reviewed your letter
Okay.
and how much I appreciated it. I thought it
Okay.
hit the right notes and
Okay.
and was appropriate, so.
Thank you for sharing that, yeah, because, it is imperative, and so, anyway. We're grateful to be able to,
Thank you, Rob. We appreciate
Thank
the
you.
progress.
Thank
We're
you
excited
for
that
coming
it's
up, too.
going to be up and running real smoothly now. Thank you
it's
so
gonna be a
much.
sight to behold.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, next, we will move on to our capital outlay maintenance updates with Jeff James. Jeff, good evening.
Good evening. We have in your packet the monthly report for our capital projects. Nothing has really transpired. Again, we're kind of in a holding pattern till the summer, with the exception of one thing, and it's not noted on your report, but at the time of printing, but I have spoken with Jason Farrell at Mountain Heritage, And the intercom and bell system at Newland Elementary has been installed. It is complete and fully functional. So that project will be stricken off on your next report. You'll see that. And also, when I spoke with him late last week, he did say that all of the camera systems, I think I reported to you last month, that the majority of them have been installed with the sheriff's grant that we partnered with. The rest of them should be completed today if everything went well. So all of the updated camera systems should be finished. I have not got confirmation of that, but I have no reason to believe that Jason will lie to me. He's a good partner with us, and we'll be doing a lot more work here in the near future with the high school and our wiring and data plan there. So at the bottom of the report, I have updated the maintenance request summary. Again, as of the month of February, we had 11 new work orders come in. We ended the month of January with 30 open. We ended the month of February with 36. So we didn't get as many done in the month of February as we had hoped to, but better weather's coming, and hopefully we'll be able to close out a little bit more of these as we get into the spring and move on to some other projects.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Is that total for the year?
That's the total since we started using the current maintenance request system that's on the website right now.
Okay.
If you would like, I can certainly, next month, I can add that and just put total for
I
this
just
school
wondered
year.
because it was so many, I thought.
Yeah, no, and I can't remember now, too many sunsets are
Yeah.
hitting
And
you.
it's not important.
Yeah. But yeah, that's from the inception of when we moved to the new system that we're managing internally.
Okey-doke.
If there's any questions, I'll be welcome to entertain them.
Thank you, Jeff. While you're still up, we'll go on to the Cross North roof update.
He's gonna be up for a while.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
from
just
Jeff
stand
Show.
about better.
Also in your packet, we have a request from Wolf Trail Engineering, who's overseeing the Crossmore Roof project. We do have a change order in front of us that would add some weather days to the total contract. Everything is within reason. Spoke with Nelson, and we're adding 64 days for rain. There were 24 days allowed in the contract, 2 holidays. That's on the last page of the report. But bottom line, they anticipate to fully be complete with this project March 19th. Weather permitting, and looking at the long-range forecast, they should be good. So it looks like we're out of that winter weather that will affect this project through March 19th. So if we can get approval on that, we'll extend their contract, settle up, and hopefully be out of there in the next couple of weeks.
It's a beautiful roof, totally changed the looks of that building. And we're so thankful that the
Looks
county
good.
agreed to go with metal.
Looks really good.
And those change orders don't cost us anything.
No,
That's just additional.
just additional time to allow them to get off the roof.
That's right. I just want to state for the record. With that, could I have a motion for approval of the change order request?
So moved.
Thank you, Jane. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to our 2020-2021 DPI Facility Needs Survey.
All right, so this is a rather lengthy report. Every 5 years, we are required to provide the DPI a facility survey that projects forward the next 5 to 10 years. It is a very arduous process. I'd forgotten how detailed this report was until I pulled it out again and started going back through it. And they've added a lot to it since 5 years ago, because I thought, well, that won't be that bad. I've got the old one on my computer. I can pull it up and just change for the times. And there's a lot of stuff on this one that wasn't on the old one 5 years ago. So, but I did provide you a summary letter. The just to give you an overview, and then everything that follows is all of the detail and the data that had to go into the report that we had to submit to DPI. We are required to present this to both the Board of Education and the Board of Commissioners. We have it on the agenda for the commissioners at their April meeting, so I'll go to that meeting the Monday of spring break and present this to them officially. And it's just a courtesy so that they know what we see or what we feel are going to be large projects for our facilities over the next 10 years. Mike Buchanan and I sat down, spent several days going through different aspects of our facilities. And the one thing that this report doesn't do, it doesn't look at, I guess you'd say, the small things. This is large stuff. This is actually more in line with, we're replacing a building, we're remodeling, we're tearing down, which we're not in the vein of doing that at the present moment. Hopefully we'll finish this high school project in the next few months, and we won't see another construction project for a while. Our facilities are in good shape for the most part. But we do have several things. There's 5 major items that we've identified. One being the roof at Cranberry Middle's Freedom Trail will need to be replaced within the next 5 years, according to our roof contractor that we partner with that does our roof inspections. Riverside Elementary, within the next 5 years, will also have to have a roof. Within 10 years, the boiler at Crossmore Elementary School will be at end of life, and it is possible that it will need to be replaced. Newland Elementary, we discussed this last year when we went through our capital process, and the geothermal system that was installed 20 years ago. And each of those units that control the heat and air in the classrooms are individual heat pumps. There's 52 individual units at that school. Those units are presently at end of life for a normal commercial heat pump. $276,000 is how much it would cost to replace each unit at that school. Fortunately, we don't have 52 units that are down. They're operating. But it is expected that within the next 10 years, those 52 units will go out. Now, maybe not all of them, but it is an expense and that we need to identify. And then the 5th thing is the chiller at Riverside. It will be at its end of life within the next 10 years. And again, all of these are projects that potentially could be extended, but we're just basing it on law of averages, warranty periods, life cycles, things of that nature.
And they also could be sooner.
And they could also be sooner, yes. That is another, you never know.
And those are today's dollars, right?
And these are at today's prices, yes, estimated at today's prices based on the tool provided by DPI.
Yeah.
These are not actual quotes. We've not went out to a vendor or to a contractor and asked. This is based on fair market prices that DPI has put together. We put in the square footage, we put in the size of the units, and it comes back and says, based on today's market price at a state level, this is what you could estimate the cost to be. So it's right at $3.4 million total over the next 10 years in anticipated end of life. But as I said, this does not replace our present annual request for capital funding. And this is not. This is on top of it. We went through the same process 5 years ago with Crossmore. And when we presented this report 5 years ago, the Crossmore roof project was one of the projects on that list, along with the air conditioning at the middle school, along with a renovation at the high school. So all of those things have come to fruition, and it was an opportunity for us to allow the commission and the board to work together to set aside the funding so that as those projects became pertinent, we had the funding available to complete them outside of our normal annual capital request. So,
Which athletic facilities are not included in here.
athletic facilities are not included in
Right,
here.
like AstroTurf replacement.
And, you know, that is one thing that I will point out to the commissioners, and I'll do the same thing for you. It is time to begin looking at our football field. You know, there is an end-of-life cycle to AstroTurf, and we are at that end of life. So we have some major decisions with capital coming up in the next few years that we will need to address. And while athletic facilities are not part of this plan, I will make mention of it so that it's not a
Surprise, at the
surprise
last minute.
at the last minute when we say, well, the $750,000 football field that we have needs to be, you know, re-rugged or whatever you'd call it.
Jeff, do you know is it just the average time frame is coming to the end of its life, or what is the condition of the turf right now? I mean, or do you know that, or who may know that?
We did have a vendor come and do an inspection of the field. I did receive that report today from Jay Smith. I have not had an opportunity to actually look at it myself. I did speak with Jay about it earlier today, and there is a measure that they use. It has to deal with how hard or how impacted the rubber is. So I guess when you hit the ground, how hard does it hit back?
Right.
Is the way I understood that. And there is a threshold that they use, and we are getting very close to the threshold. So, you know, that is one of the things I did ask Jay to provide us, along with, you know, more than just, well, we need a new football field. We need the justification, what is the reasoning. And the lifespan typically when it was installed, we were told was 10 years. And it's over 10 years now.
Right.
With AstroTurf, when you replace it, do you just have to replace the turf, or do you have to redo the base and all that sand and that layering and whatever that stuff is?
It's not as intensive of a project as it was to install it initially. So the base, the drain, the gravel, the underlayment is fine. I'm assuming that when they pull the turf up, they remove the rubberized pellets. They will have to inspect the underlayment to ensure that it is of, you know, up to code before they begin to put the other back down. It will not be as expensive to replace the turf as it was to install the turf.
Okay.
We're looking at somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 is the
The track was done at
estimate.
the same time, wasn't it? Didn't we do?
Yes, the track was done at the same time.
And with the track, is it time for
The
that as
quote, the
well?
quotes that we did receive that we will go over when we go through our capital process in the coming weeks do include resurfacing the track as well.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Anybody got any other questions for Jeff? Next, again, while you're still there, we need to take action on the school calendar update. Knowing it's subject to change.
And you're exactly right. We know there are going to be some changes forthcoming out of the legislature regarding the school calendar. So whichever calendar we approve will definitely maintain the title of draft.
Yes.
Okay, so there are two calendars that Mr. James drafted. One is 180 day, and one's 185 day.
What we received notice from DPI last week that we have to have our start date and end date in Power School by April the 1st, according to general statute or state board policy. I can't remember which it is. So we do need to take action tonight on which calendar we want to officially adopt so that Ms. Baird can go ahead and get that information set up for next year's Power School. Draft A is the 185-day version. Draft B is the 180-day version. That is the only difference between the two, is the number of days. You know, the start date, the breaks, everything, with the exception on draft B, the 180-day version. When we discussed this back, I believe it was in January, there was the question about Christmas break and would it be possible to allow Christmas break to begin on Monday rather than carry school into that week. And with draft B, because of it being a 180-day calendar, there is enough optional work days remaining that we could place 2 optional work days at Christmas break so that we could have that full 2 weeks that we've been accustomed to the last few years. The 185-day version, it just does not have that ability without just taking everything away at the end of the school year and having no flexibility at all with inclement weather or any other extenuating circumstances that could come against the school district. So-
One other question, since it's still gonna be a draft, the 6-hour day, the time could change if we put everybody on more of a same schedule kind of thing?
It could. The 6-hour day, I just had to have something
the
in there.
minimum?
Yeah, I had to have something in there to calculate the hours. 6 hours is really the minimum that we need to go in order to achieve 1,025 fairly earlier in the year than later.
Right.
We have traditionally been going longer than that, but, you know, I just pulled that out of the air.
Well, that's fine, I just want,
But yes, once we determine what the length of the school day will be for next year, we'll update that, and that just moves that 1,025 mark earlier in May, which provides us that opportunity for more flexibility with inclement weather.
because we don't know that we can use remote learning at all, right?
We do not, at this present moment,
That was a
remote.
question I was gonna ask.
At this
We don't-
point,
we don't know
remote
this right
learning is
now.
not an option in next year's calendar because that is only available in this school year only. And that's why we're saying, whatever we decide tonight, we will maintain the title draft because we do understand that once the General Assembly gets into their session, there will be calendar law changes. There will have to be calendar law changes to address COVID at the beginning of the school year. The whole ordeal that we're facing with House Bill 82, that's going to affect the calendar law. So there's a lot of things that will transpire, and you know, and I'm not going to guess at what they are. We just know that as soon as the General Assembly makes those decisions, we'll need to make alterations to this calendar to adhere to it, and we'll just do the best that we can.
So the calendar committees, the calendar committees recommend, their feedback was for the 180-day calendar?
Yes, ma'am.
From the schools?
Yes, ma'am.
But
is my
the state could come
recommendation.
back and say 185.
The state could come back and say 185, the state could come back and say 190, like they did this year. It's, you know,
Well, with their options of having extended hours in the day, and also with their options of having or hours
Mhm.
if it becomes a total disaster or something, I think we can go with draft B and be completely safe since that is what the school committees came up with.
Is that a motion?
That's what Dr.
I make that a motion.
That's a motion.
Dr.
I'll
Rickman, is
second
that your
That's my
recommendation?
recommendation, yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
All right. Oh,
We got a motion
is there a
and a
motion?
second.
Who has
I
the
made
amendment?
it.
Oh,
I seconded it.
second.
And I
Any-
said aye.
Any other, let me ask, anybody got discussion?
I think
Ready
that
to
was
roll.
a
I don't like
lot of
what
school
they
system, a lot of,
There's a lot, seems to be a lot of bills out there for school systems that are asking for flexibility just for their system.
yes.
Where are our legislators asking for us? Because we need some flexibility on start dates, that's for sure. So I just wondered.
I know that they have introduced that bill once again, have they not? To
I
have
know
that
individual
flexibility?
counties have and a few together have, but I don't know.
But
there's more than just day plans, there's plans for types of learning that they're
Yeah,
doing and.
yeah, okay. I
All kinds
just
of
wondered if
things.
we had any update on.
There is also a year-round bill out there that Senator Daniels told me about.
That's for everyone?
Well, it would be.
It'd be for everyone.
It'd be for everyone.
And I know Representative
Okay.
Green's working on one.
Okay, good,
We received an email earlier this week.
good.
So he is working on one for the mountain
Good.
counties.
We need one. Thank you. Okay.
Great.
All in favor?
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
We will post that on the website tomorrow. I'll get with David Reed and we'll get that out there. The committee does things.
Thank you, Jeff, and please thank the committee too for all that hard work. Next, well, again, Jeff, the retirement of state installment system.
Something that I did not think I would ever be in front of a board presenting in my lifetime. We received a memo on February the 18th from the state that the state has made the determination that as of July 1, they are doing away with what we call the state installment system. Other people call it the escrow system. It's basically, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's where 10-month employees have the option to elect to have their pay spread out over 12 months. And there is a push going on right now at the state level for state modernization of all of the computer systems. And one of the recommendations coming out of that committee is to remove this from the state system. There is a lot of arduous work that goes into, Ms. Bumgarner shaking her head, she remembers. There's a lot that we have to do in June and July to manage and maintain, and just for us being a small county, I can imagine in the larger counties and then at the state level. So this will be the last year that we will be able to offer our employees the option for us to provide them 12 paychecks. They will begin drawing 10 paychecks, and then they will have options available to them for how they manage their money for the summer months. The one option that has been available for years, and this option does satisfy the state law, because the state law does require that 10-month employees are given the opportunity to have their pay spread out over 12 months. So in absence of the state actually providing that system, the credit union can be a valid option to satisfy the state law. And I provided you with a flyer from the credit union on how that program would work. Did I not?
No, you didn't.
That's okay.
I thought I gave you the flyer.
It's in the very back. No, it's not. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I will email you when I get to my desk this flyer. I thought I had given that to Stephanie. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We do have a flyer from the credit union that details the process and ultimately how that system would work. I had every intention, you know the old saying, the road of good intentions, but I had every intention before tonight's meeting to reach out to our local banks to talk to them about this option as well. I know I have spoken with Michael at Wells Fargo, or whatever it is now, and I've spoken with the manager at First Citizens once upon a time, and they did say that they felt like they would be able, if we ever needed to offer a similar service. So it's not just that the credit union would be the only option. I do feel that the other banks in our county would be able to do a similar program that would allow our employees to have their money deposited into their account, and the bank will just take 1/5 of their earnings and set it aside into a separate account that they cannot withdraw from until the summer. Now, they have the right, it is their money, it is their account. They can close the account and take all of it. But they can't just say, oh, I need an extra $100, can I take $100 out of my summer account? You know, so they do manage that for them. So, but it is an interesting time.
And I apologize, he may have sent that, I didn't realize it needed to be included in here, so I apologize.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I'd just share with you briefly that obviously this is having a ripple effect all across the state, especially our clients that are smaller districts are having to really grapple with the kind of legwork it means to take that on at the local level. There is some, it's not really quite law. There was an Attorney General's opinion from back in, oh gosh, I want to say 2008, that the law said if the state didn't do it, local districts had to provide it. Now, why that means you can't provide it by making sure that everybody's banks in the area would also set up that system for them and spread those paychecks out over the summer months, I don't know. And we're pressing to make sure that there's a common understanding across the state that is a viable way to do it. Some districts in the past have already taken this step several years ago, saying we're not going to offer it anymore, and if you want to make your own arrangement, go ahead and do it. So I don't, and I also don't know why a teacher wouldn't want to have it that way, because when it's sitting in that account that they're going to get, during the summer months, it's making interest for them. If it's sitting in the state's accounts or in your accounts, it's not making interest for them. So it's to their benefit too. Nonetheless, there's some groups that are out there trying to raise the issue as though that's not a good enough arrangement for some reason.
It's much better for the employee. This is a better option.
Yeah.
Much
Completely
better.
agree. So, but not everybody does just yet, unfortunately. So we're working toward making sure that that's, and again, I don't want to raise trouble for you that you don't have already, so I hope I haven't done that, but that's,
No, thank you, John. That's
the
good
situation.
to know. Thank you. Next, we have a request for Beach Mountain Parks and Recreation for summer transportation, and we've done this for several years.
That's right. Yes, they're going to be making 5 trips, and we have a substitute driver, Samuel Daniels, has agreed to drive these routes. So that would be this summer for 5 trips, and I recommend the board give approval for Beach Parks and Recreation to access one of our buses.
Dr. Brigham, I just have one question. Did we not pass a policy where we didn't use our buses out at the beginning of the COVID? Would we need to rescind that policy?
I don't know if we did a policy. I don't think we did a policy about restricting.
Which, I'm good with it, but I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that we don't go against that policy.
Right. No, we,
Or against state
Yeah,
mandates.
yeah, I think there was something that we didn't set the buses out or something like that. I just want to make sure, I think this is wonderful and I want us to do it, but I just want to make sure we don't go against that policy.
I can
Yeah.
double check.
yeah, we'll double check. I think DHHS sent some guidelines out in our
Right.
toolkit to try to limit external use of our facilities, which this may fall under that.
Okay.
We'll make sure that we're
All right.
in compliance with that.
With that, I'll ask for a motion then for approval of the transportation request pending clarification of the order.
And that it meets they
Right.
follow
We'll
state
di-
guidelines.
We'll disinfect after those trips too, like we've been.
Yeah.
Then I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ruth. Could I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Pat. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good question, Ms. Shaw.
Okay. And finally, Jeff, one more time, we have approved change orders.
I gave him that break so he could get a sip of water.
It's on
So-
board.
This item is basically just a point of information. We did send out to the board last week, change order 15 for approval, approximately $26,000. We did receive confirmation from Stephanie that you did approve that. So that change order has been executed and submitted to branch, and they are underway with the process of, the one big thing that was in there was an issue with an awning that is got to be installed in front of the gym. We're trying to do that between football games because according to the fire marshal, we will not be able to have anyone in the locker rooms while that work is going on. We had hoped that we'd just be able to go in another way, but the fire marshal said no. And so I worked with the principal, Ricky and Jay, and they believe that it's a 2-week turnaround. And so between their the next 2 home games, we have ample opportunity for them to do that work and get out of the way. So we really needed to get these under contract so that we wouldn't hold that up.
Okay.
So unless you have any specific questions about any of the change orders that you approved last week, I'm done.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to make him do it standing on his head now.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Cartwheel and on your head, that's right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
If I could have a motion to move to closed session. for-
Johnny, I have a board member comment before we do, please, if I could. Could I do a board member comment?
Okay, yeah, well, we can move that, that's usually after the consent agenda, but we'll go ahead and,
Okay,
that's fine,
this
that's
is
fine
it.
right now, Ruth, go right ahead.
First of all, I do want to commend our teachers over the last year for what they've done. I think without a doubt, every night we get a call that we have positive COVID cases, and without a doubt, I know that Dr. Brigman hears that we need to go virtual, we need to go this, and I know each one of us hear that. It's as imperative today that we work together for our kids as it was a year ago. We know how hard virtual and remote is. And we hear from those parents how hard it is. And we hear from those kids how hard it is. But we also know that it's very hard for a teacher to have a student face-to-face and a student remote and wondering how that student's going to be in class each day. So what we've got to do as a community is remember what we've had to for the last months. We have to be good role models as adults. We have to wear those masks until we know that it's safe to not do so. And so when we do those calls at night, we say, everyone's wore masks. Masks were worn at all times. And I want us to commit ourselves as a district And when we say that, that has to be what's happened, is that mask has been worn at all times. And so parents know that that's true, and that's what's happened. I don't want us to go remote, and I want to say that here tonight, because I don't think it's what's best for kids. And I've sat here with you four and with Dr. Brigman, and I think you feel the same way. And I've heard parents cry to me that that's not what they want for their child. A year ago was the worst time of my life as an educator, and I never want to go back to that. So we have got to work together as a community and as adults and be good role models and do those things that we know that can help stop the spread of this virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate that. Well said. While we're doing board comments, would anybody else have a? Okay. If not, could I have a motion to move to closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged or confidential, not a public record?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Kathy. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ruth. Any discussion? All in favor?
Uh-huh.
Thank you all for joining us online. We appreciate that, and we're looking forward to springtime coming and good weather and kids in school, as Ruth just eloquently stated. So, good night, everybody. We appreciate you again for tuning into our meeting tonight.